Welcome back to Puddin' Fab Shop.
Today, we're going to look at upgrading the windshield wiper motor on our travelall project. Let's get started. Well, I needed an easy project to do today since I decided to do the jump through your own leg challenge with the girls last night, and I busted up my foot pretty good. But this is pretty easy. All we gotta do is remove this. And the way they built it, we can take this over to the workbench and adapt it over there, because this just bolts on with those two bolts and it interlocks up there. So as long as we can get that in the same location, we'll be good to go. So let's take this over to the workbench. When I was building my truck, I had a couple of these motors, and one tried to work, but it didn't work very well. And I decided I would just upgrade it. So this wiper motor right here, you can get on eBay, very cheap, like less than $30. And it's for a 1983 Jeep Wrangler, I believe. And it's gonna take a little bit of work to adapt this, but in the end we can make it work. So the first thing I wanna do is I'm gonna pull this little bracket off here, strip, or take this nut off, pull this off, get the coupler and bracket off of this one. So since we do have to get this back at the same location, it is important to measure off that to the top of that, which is 3/4 of an inch, just so we know where we have to get it at. So to mount this, the two bolt holes on here are too wide for this, and we will be kicking it off to the passenger side, which I put me a D and a P on there to help me remember. So basically what we need to do is cut a piece of strap that this can bolt to, and we can weld that strap to our adapter plate here. This piece don't have to be a real beefy piece or nothing, so I'm gonna make it out of the rest of this gas tank strap I have from the Sierra. So with our plate bolted on there, I want it to kick off to the passenger side, and those nuts are too big. So if we wanted to turn this thing straight up and down, we could actually make it work like that pretty easy. But like I said, I want to keep it going towards the passenger side. So I'm gonna have to end up putting a notch on each edge over here where those nuts can clear. Now these nuts, I'm gonna end up welding them to this plate, so they'll become part of it. So we've just got to get some clearance where we can get the shaft in the center of the hole on this plate. So let me mark this and grind it out. Now that I have those tacked on, I'm going to get this lined up where I want it, tack it through one of these holes to that bracket, and then I will, like I said, pull it apart, we'll flip it over and weld it on the other side. Now we have this adapted where with two little 1/4 bolts, we can bolt it right onto that bracket. That was a pain in the butt to TIG weld. I did not get it near clean enough. And with whatever coatings on this, I don't think I cleaned up my bracket enough. I forgot to clean up the edge and I kept losing my gas. Man, it was kicking my butt, but it's on there. So next thing we're gonna have to do is cut this piece down to basically be a small circle around that splined area. And we are gonna have to step out this piece a little bit because it will not go down over those splines. And then we are going to have to get them lined up where we think they're center and get them welded together. So I gave up with the TIG welder. I was not having luck with it. I could practice on clean metal, no problem. And then as soon as I was trying to weld this piece, it was messing up. So I ground down most of the TIG weld and I just zapped it with the MIG real quick. A few tacks on each side. This is how I did the first one. So next, I need to get this down on here and we'll get the nut started on it. So I used that belt sander and actually shaved this nut down just a little bit to get rid of pretty much the area that can lock on the threads. Give us a little bit more room for this thing to get started. And it's been so long since I built the one for my truck that I forgot about that, but I remember having to do it now. I'm not gonna push my luck with that. Snug, is gonna work. I don't think we'll have any issues of it coming off. So here's what's cool about doing it this way. Using the center splines from the Jeep arm, welding it to the coupler of the International, and then this base plate back here that we added being 16 gauge. At the beginning of the video, I said we need it to stand off at 3/4 of an inch, and that's within a 1/16, probably about a 32nd from being 3/4 of an inch, which should be perfect. I mean, good to go. So the next thing we're gonna have to look at is wiring this thing. So that's the next day now. I finally caved in, went to the doctor. It looks like I fractured my foot, but we're gonna carry on with the wiring, and hopefully this will help some of y'all out if you decide to go down this road. So to figure out this wiring, I did it last time with the truck, and I found a diagram of a switch that was very similar to this one online, but I can't remember what the diagram was from. It was not from a Jeep. It was like an AMC or something. And after looking at it, I was able to figure this switch out. I couldn't actually find good information on a Jeep one. So we're gonna just try to use what I can reference off my truck and what we have here. So from the screenshot earlier, when you go to buy these motors off eBay, you'll notice that the colors in here don't even match the picture. So what we're gonna use are the letters on here. They have A, B, C, and D. So I'm gonna write down the A, B, C, and D and what color it is. A is yellow. B is red. C is green. And D is white. And the reason I'm doing that is if you end up getting one of these motors, the odds are they're not gonna have the same color wires per se, but maybe it'll have the A, B, C, and D, so you can cross-reference and still figure this out.
Dang, guys, you're gonna get in police and you're gonna get a ticket. You got a 100 too? I did have one.
So I tried to draw this where you can reference off the back of the switch and see that area and the two black nubs on here. So every one of these will be one of the spades on the back of the switch. So our two over here is 12-volt power coming in, and then our 4 over on this side will be the ones going out to the wiper motor. So A was our yellow wire, it'll be right there. B was our red wire, C was our green wire, and D was our white wire. And then this spade over here will not be used. So the next thing I want to do is cut these off and crimp on some spade connectors where we can actually wire this thing up to the battery.
Red.
Red. Okay. We're gonna put this wire in here. See? And then squeeze these as hard as you can.
Can I do it?
Yep. Now it's stuck on there. So we have some connectors on here, and then from when I tested my fans, I already have this wire built up, so we can just use this to supply both of our 12 volts. So I'm gonna get these wires on here, and we'll take it to the travelall. Now this thing does ground through mounting, so you'll notice in here there's not a ground wire as part of the schematic, and that's the reason why. So let me get these on here, and we'll take it and install this thing on the travelall. So before we actually mount this thing, we actually need to do a couple steps to get this thing indexed correctly. So these are our two 12 volt wires, the positives. I'm going to take them just right here on the battery, and I'm going to use this other wire from wiring up my fans to ground this, since it grounds through mounting. We'll just put that on there, and this on our negative. And we actually need to take off this coupler. This motor has a home position, or a park position more or less. So we need to cycle power through this where this motor ends up at the home position. There's the first speed. That'll be the second speed. And when you turn it off, you see it'll keep going and stop. That's the home position. So we need it to be there so we can index our coupler correctly. So when we go to mount it, the wipers end up home. So with the motor at the home position, you want your wiper blades at your home position as well. And we need to take our motor and this coupler and get this on here at the right angle where that will interlock on there. So if we take that, get it on there at the right angle, which I've already done this, so I have me a little reference mark to be able to help me out. You may have to clock it a time or two to get it just right. So now the motor's at home, and this is clocked correctly for the wipers to be home. So now we can try these things out once I get this tightened down. I'm gonna ground these wires to the firewall so we can provide a ground for the motor. There's the first speed. There's the second speed. And there's the park feature where it takes them back home. So I want to show you that again and just a little closer. First speed, second speed, park. So this can be a good, easy upgrade for you guys if you're having a hard time finding a windshield wiper motor. I promise it's not a lot of work. It's doable in a couple hours. When you go to wire this up for good, I would recommend you use some kind of connector that has a cover on it, because the wiring is so close together. But what I'm going to do at the very end of this video is provide some pictures of this little schematic and both sides of this connector. That way it can help you figure out the wiring on yours if you go down this road.
If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and don't forget to turn on press notifications so you miss any of his videos. Also, make sure to comment down below if you have any questions, and go check out his Instagram at PutInSfabShop. See you guys all next time. Bye!
And don't forget, sitting on your ass won't finish your project. I'll see you guys in the next video.